Now, the queen was beginning to understand the situation, as much as she would have liked not to. Shenran was willing to sacrifice his own followers for just a bit more time in his attempt to escape. That asshole. The queen couldn't help but swear. It would have been okay if Shenran tricked them alone, but it was a wretched thing to betray the people you have sworn to lead and nurture. He was insane, a man willing to do whatever it took to survive. Don't worry, though. The way he did this has given us a chance to survive, Hansen said coldly, watching Shenran run off without stopping. I will count to 100. When I say 100, we run out together from the skull. This will be our only chance of escape. Hansen started counting up. He unlocked his gene lock to keep track of where the raven and the donkey were. The fact they had gone off after the treacherous Shenran brought a modicum of gladness to their hearts. Once the monsters had gone far enough, Hansen was prepared to make one last run for escape alongside the queen. When he counted to 100, he was no longer able to see where the raven and donkey were. Acknowledging they had to be a great distance away by now, Hansen knew it was time. They both darted out from beneath the bones like arrows. A little while later, Hansen's heart felt as if it was going to leap out of his chest. Tugging on the queen's hand, he yelled at her to go back. The queen looked around and did not espy any nearby danger, but she had come to trust Hansen's judgment a lot. Without hesitation, she returned to the skull with him. As Hansen retreated, he looked around himself to confirm whether or not there was any danger but could not see anything. Still, he trusted his instincts, and his instincts were telling him to turn back. There was a danger of some immediacy in the area, and it was something that could kill him. Running as fast as he could back to the bones, the feeling of danger began to choke him. It was getting stronger and stronger. With his gene lock at max capacity, the sense of impending doom was unbearable. In the next moment, a bright light flashed by Hansen's neck. He didn't hear anything, but he jumped forward. That was when he saw the looming black shadow that had crept over him. Blood gushed like a bouquet of flowers. Hansen felt as if his back was burning. He suspected a bone in his back had been broken. But the wound was the least of his concerns right now, as he rolled and climbed towards the bones of the ribcage once more. It was a life or death gambit, and what had seemed like a short distance to traverse now went on and on instead. The raven was furious at its inability to finish off Hansen. It flapped its wings and disappeared once more. When it reappeared again, the wing blades of Hansen's nemesis sliced against the back of Hansen's neck. Hansen's heart let out a cry, "It's over." But at that precise moment, when it appeared Hansen was about to lose his head, the dried vines that strangled the bones came to life. They were each like toxic snakes, lashing out at the raven that had drawn too near to the ribcage. They trapped the beast, and though it pecked and swung its wings as hard as it could, the raven could not cut its way free. Hansen felt a chill. The raven had wanted to kill Hansen so much, and now its body was being dragged into the ribcage he had previously sought shelter in. The gourd vines were choking the life out of it as it struggled to get free. Hansen froze. He had never expected the seemingly lifeless vines to have so much power enough to restrain a super creature such as that. Now Hansen understood. The creatures weren't afraid of the bones, they were afraid of the vines that were wrapped around them. Having managed to remove the gourd from the vines earlier, Hansen hoped the seemingly sentient vines did not think poorly of him. In Hansen's chest pocket, the gourd began to pulsate once more. This time, it was stronger than ever. Bringing out the gourd to hold in his hands, he really did feel like it was a heartbeat. Hansen now knew for sure that this was no trick of his mind. The weak pulse was like the heartbeat of a baby. It may have been faint, but it was life all the same. "Are you okay?" The queen looked at the wound on Hansen's back in fright. From shoulder to waist, his back had been sliced entirely open. The gash was so deep, his spine was visible. On Hansen's neck, there was another wound that oozed blood. Fortunately for him, it wasn't so deep as to touch the bone or windpipe. If the raven had been allowed to go any deeper, he'd most likely have been decapitated. "I can hold it," Hansen hissed from his gritted teeth. His back was in agony, and he knew he had a damaged spine. But fortunately, it wasn't too bad. Then, all of a sudden, a screech pierced the air. The black raven, tangled and restrained by the vines, didn't look so fearsome as it once did. The ends of the vines were spiked, and they drove themselves deep into the raven's body. The vines seemed alive, as if they had a thirst for the raven's blood. As they absorbed the scarlet, the vines themselves turned a deep shade of red. The dried-up vines writhed with renewed vigor, and they started to grow longer and larger than before. The black raven called out twice. Its body contorted and twisted as plumes of feathers puffed out to dress the air like snowfall. With great strength, the raven squirmed its way free from the clutch of the vines and took off into the air in fear. It was gone for good. Hansen froze when he saw that. He did not expect the raven to be strong enough to escape the grasp of the vines. After the raven escaped, the gourd vines retreated, wrapping their way around the bones just as they were earlier. The vines that had turned red now became yellow like before as well. His eyes drifted to the raven's feathers that now carpeted the ground. The black feathers of the raven were of its outer coat. It wasn't a great number that had fallen, but there were around 30. Each feather was about 1 foot long. He reached to grab one and his eyes lit up. The black feathers belonged to a super creature and did not look normal. Rather than enabling flight, they were more like weapons the raven could employ. Every feather was like steel, and it was frightening to simply hold. This cannot be the treasure the raven dropped. Han Sen told the queen to gather up all the black feathers for him. After an accurate count, there were 36 feathers. It was a number that could be evenly split. Han Sen's back was in terrible pain. He looked at the queen and said, "How about you try out the sturdiness of the feathers?" The queen nodded. She drew her sacred blood beast soul sword and chopped one of the feathers with a direct hit. Nothing, not a single scratch was left upon it. This really is some good stuff. Han Sen looked happy. If he managed to modify the feathers a certain way, he'd be able to craft a new type of bolt. If he used them alongside his peacock crossbow, he might be able to slay a super creature with them. How about we split them up evenly? 18 feathers each, Han Sen suggested to the queen. It is useless for me to own a bunch of silly feathers. You can have them all. The queen passed all of the feathers to Han Sen. Earlier, the queen took notice of the strange crossbow Han Sen had used to fire at the Red Cloud donkey. Strangely enough, it looked quite similar to the Deadeye peacock. The queen was starting to wonder if the crossbow was the peacock's beast soul. Han Sen was certainly not going to admit anything on such a subject, so the queen didn't ask. If Han Sen wanted those feathers, it'd be to make bolts. Such bolts and a crossbow would come in handy for the slaying of super creatures, so she preferred not saying anything and simply giving all of the feathers to Han Sen outright. We have to leave while the raven is gone. If the donkey returns, our escape will be difficult with you unable to run due to your injury. After the queen said this, she picked Han Sen up and supported him in his descent down the rest of the mountain. Han Sen was being carried on the queen's back. He felt incredibly privileged and cared for this was the first time anyone else had helped him in such a way. The fact that it was a woman made him feel odd, however. Luckily enough, no more dangers arose during their time on the road. They managed to descend the mountain without interruptions. The queen summoned an elephant ride and took Han Sen to the nearest shelter so he could return to the Alliance and recover. Han Sen loaded one up and fired a raven feather bolt. A black streak flew a distance of 3 kilometers, managing to pierce through a giant fir tree without slowing down. It took another 3 barrel-thick trees to slow it down enough to remain stuck. It's so strong. Han Sen was so happy, he almost jumped with joy. After loading up his quiver, Han Sen traveled to the base of a mountain cliff. He placed the gourd into a little nook along its rough surface and took aim with his peacock crossbow. He fired it at the gourd. Boom! The black feather had a direct hit on the gourd, which triggered a powerful explosion. A big hole was blown into the craggy surface of the cliff, in which the gourd still remained lodged, without harm. Holy smokes! What is with this gourd? Han Sen couldn't believe what he was seeing. Now that Han Sen thought about it some more, the raven was unable to bring harm to the gourd vines. It had to shed its own feathers to escape their grasp. Perhaps this was to be expected. Han Sen retrieved the gourd with a puzzled expression and a bewildered mind. Han Sen really could not shake the fear of toxic wasps one day emerging from the gourd to strike him in his sleep. Han Sen had heard the fable of the farmer and the viper many times, and the last thing he wanted was to become such a victim. When Han Sen dropped the gourd from a great height, the silver fox quickly grabbed it and spat it back out into Han Sen's hand. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Han Sen asked the fox, holding the saliva-covered gourd in his hand. Han Sen, not receiving a formal response, dropped the gourd once again. And again, the silver fox leapt down, grabbed it, and passed it back to Han Sen. At least he knew that the silver fox wanted him to keep the gourd. Han Sen observed the silver fox for a good while longer, but then turned around and left the area. If this was something the silver fox insisted that he keep, he didn't believe it to be of any genuine threat. Perhaps one day, it really could yield a mighty treasure of some sort. And at least when he held the gourd himself, he could not sense any danger. It was just his paranoia insisting that he be rid of it. The heartbeat of the gourd was what disturbed Han Sen the most. Whenever he held it in his hand, the movement inside concerned him a great deal. The curious pulsation hadn't stopped ever since his return from Sky Pillar Mountain. Han Sen rested for half a month. His body healed in that time and the mood of his mind improved, too. Now that he had the peacock crossbow and raven feather bolts, providing he didn't meet an obscenely powerful super creature like the raven, he might finally be able to hunt one down. But where would I find such a target? If it was a super creature like the donkey, I could give it a shot. Literally. And even if it did not die, I should be able to escape it without much trouble, Han Sen mulled to himself. But the Sky Pillar Mountain was still home to that wretched raven, and he didn't fancy going near that place for a good long while. Who's there? Han Sen frowned. Brother Han, it is me. Han Sen was shocked, unable to believe the old bastard was still alive, and that he had actually dared to come see him. What could he possibly want? Old Chen, I am surprised you have found the time to come visit me. Zhu Ting said you are a good friend of his. I heard from him that you are here, and so I have come to see you. Why didn't you say so before? If you had, perhaps our acquaintance and travel together would have been far more cordial. Chen Ran smiled. Han Sen thought to himself in his heart, it would be a great misfortune to be considered your family. Han Sen's relationship with the Chen family was fine. It wasn't particularly amicable, but there had been no strife between them either. Had Chen Ran known about his connection with Zhu Ting, it wouldn't have made a difference. Chen Ran's actions that day were not spurred by anything other than his selfish desire to live, putting himself before anyone else. Brother Han, this place is no good for you. How about you move into my shelter? I will prepare the best room for you, have the nicest food served to you, and have the prettiest girls wait on you. You'll have everything there. Old Chen, thank you but no thank you. I will be returning to the ice fields in 2 days. If there is something you would like to tell me or get off your chest, I am standing right here, Han Sen said. Since you are returning to the ice fields, would you aid me by delivering a few beast souls to Zhu Ting? How many beast souls? Han Sen asked. A few thousand. Before anything could be asked, Chen Ran continued, of course, this won't be for free. This card I have here has 50 million in it. This is the price I can pay you for their delivery. Han Sen observed the card Chen Ran pulled out but did not take it. He laughed on the inside and said to himself, this old man is smart. There is a lack of beast souls in the ice fields, and now this man is having me transport a vast number there. He tells me he'll give me 50 million, but who knows how many billions he'll earn from their sale. Old Chen, you are well aware of the situation in the ice fields. I am a self-proclaimed leader, little more. The true managers of the ice field are Lai Xinglun and Kai Ziyuan. Here is 500 million. You have to take this money to help out Zhu Ting. This poor kid. He was born poorly, alone in the ice fields without family. It is my sole desire to help him. The ice fields do not belong to me alone. If you want to do business, I will accept 20% of the revenue generated from any sale of these both souls you wish for me to transport. Chen Ran's face was unexpectedly happy. He jovially said, sure, if you say so. Han Sen then proceeded to say, but like I said, the ice fields do not belong to me alone. Aside from my goddess army, there is the Star Wheel faction, Black God faction, and Philip faction. This deal will not work if they aren't provided a benefit. If you really want me to help you, then you will have to provide them 20% of each sale as well. Young man, you cannot conduct business like this. Sometimes, a simple favor is better than any monetary gain. If you accept 50%, then perhaps I will have further business ventures for you in the future. Then I apologize. I must regretfully inform you once more that the ice fields do not belong to me alone. If I only accept 50%, I cannot report this to the others, Han Sen said. Han Sen thought it better to be without a favor from someone like Chen Ran. He was happy to allow Zhu Dongjin and his brothers, who followed him with an unwavering faith, to be unceremoniously sacrificed so he could escape. His favors were the sort of thing that could get you killed. Well, if things are indeed like that, I regret bothering you this day. Keep an eye on that one. As soon as he leaves the shelter, contact me. Accepting their appointed tasks, the people around Chen Ran got set up to spy on Han Sen. Huh? This is the son of Han Jingjai. No way that old man had a child. Chen Ran's eyes flashed with a sinister haze. Han Sen had received a map for returning to the ice fields from Huangfu Ping King, and with that in hand, he delayed no longer. He set out back to the ice fields. Not long after exiting the shelter, Han Sen was traveling through a mountainous region. It was a desolate and lonely place, devoid of any sign of human life. But then, Han Sen stayed his travel and said out loud, Old Chen, since you're here, why not join me? Those are some strong senses you possess, Chen Ran said as he came out from behind a big tree. Another 20 people emerged from a thicket of trees to surround Han Sen. They were brandishing bows and the weaponry of assassins. As if they were prepared to attack, they all took aim at Han Sen. One signal from Chen Ran was all it would take to turn Han Sen into a hedgehog. Old Chen, is this petty gathering all due to me refusing to transport your beast souls? Are you planning to kill me? Han Sen was still atop Golden Roarer when he spoke, and the tone of his voice was as mellow as ever. Chen Ran smiled and said, "That was only a minor order of business. I would not harbor ill sentiments over your refusal of that request. You interest me a great deal, boy. As such, I am merely here to ask you a number of questions. If you answer them, I will bring you no harm. Then tell me, what is it you would like to know?" Han Sen did not move. Chen Ran's first question was straightforward. "You have only been in this second shelter for a year. How have you managed to unlock your gene lock and amass such a high number of geno points?" Chen Ran's eyes were fixated on Han Sen, and it was evident from his question that he had done a lot of research on him. He seemed to be in disgruntled shock at what he had learnt, as well. "I thought you were going to ask me a question of some importance. This is nothing, and there was no need for you to put on a show and build an audience for my answering." Han Sen laughed. "Then tell me." Chen Ran was not amused, nor in the mood for jests, so he coldly looked at Han Sen. "I have amassed so many geno points and have already unlocked my gene lock because of one simple reason," Han Sen said, with a heightened tone of gravitas in his voice. "What reason?" Chen Ran asked, with widened eyes. "It is because I am a genius." Han Sen laughed. Chen Ran's face dimmed. He coldly smiled and responded, "What a genius." After that, Chen Ran waved his hand, and the arrows of his followers loosed upon Han Sen like rain. Han Sen put away his golden roar and moved to dodge the hail. Not a single arrow hurt him. Chen Ran did not expect them to hurt Han Sen, either. Such a thing would only be possible if there were an additional 100 archers. The numbers he had with him were too few, so the most they could do was hinder his movement. Chen Ran gestured with his hand once more, and then a man with a sword ran towards Han Sen. He was incredibly fast, and in 3 steps, he was already in front of him. The greatsword he wielded was swung upwards, as if to tear the skies asunder. Chen Ran watched Han Sen intently, keen to observe the full extent of his powers. He used to have 3 others with him that had unlocked their gene lock, but 2 of them died on Sky Pillar Mountain. But the only remaining elite was, by all accounts, Chen Ran's strongest man. Even when fighting together, Zhu Dongjin and his other elite could not beat him. This person was called Huang Mayan. Although he did not belong to the Chen family, he was looked upon highly enough to become a successor of Kai Gong. But because the Huang family was not as popular as the Chen family, the Kai Gong was not as effective. Recently, Han Sen had come to learn many sword skills. Although he had not mastered it, his progress with the dual sword skill had come a long way. But seeing Huang Mayan's attack, Han Sen quickly learnt what a true sword skill was. That did not mean Han Sen thought the skill was powerful. However, it gave him the feeling that Huang Mayan was an extension of the blade he wielded and vice versa. The sword and the person were bound together like one. That was what was so profound. The ancient mascot sword effectively blocked Huang Mayan's sword. Han Sen had activated his gene lock, which allowed him to sense the strength delivered in Huang Mayan's attack. Chen Ran stood on the sidelines, watching them battle. He was shocked when observing Han Sen, as his speed and power were far exceeding his own lofty expectations. What amazed him the most were the sword skills he was employing. He was using 2 swords, yet despite that, he was able to cast separate sword skills from each hand. The power to have 2 minds like that was almost frightening. With such profound power, he suspected he chose the right opponent for Han Sen. If it was anybody else, they would have been crushed and annihilated within seconds. Han Sen really admired Huang Mayan. His power and speed may not have been on the same level as his own, and his sword skill wasn't as great as the dual sword skill Han Sen possessed. But still, he wasn't submitting as easily as Han Sen might have initially thought he would. "Friend, this is between me and Chen Ran. There is no need for you to sacrifice your own life on his behalf. If you are not from the Chen family, you should leave now," Han Sen said. "I accepted old Chen's money for his employment of my services. I have to see this through." Huang Mayan kept moving his sword. Chen Ran wore a smile of disdain. He thought Han Sen could not last much longer, and that was why he resorted to talking Huang Mayan out of fighting him. "Assuming you don't mind, I'd like to see what happens next." Han Sen did not say anything more, but he found the idea of killing Huang Mayan to be distasteful. It was just as Chen Ran thought, though Han Sen did want to use words to bring about an end to the fight and conserve his energy. He didn't want to reveal his secret weapon to Chen Ran by using it on Huang Mayan first, either. Han Sen had come to learn a lot about Chen Ran. He was a smart, old fox. If Han Sen brought out his peacock crossbow to end the fight against Huang Mayan now, he'd be running off before the corpse of his most ardent follower hit the ground. The skills of the Chen family were no joke, and they were amongst the best the alliance had. 1 hour later, Huang Mayan's power was beginning to wind down. With constant fighting, the time one could keep their gene lock open was considerably shorter. This was happening to Huang Mayan, and he was struggling to maintain his composure. Chen Ran noticed how Huang Mayan was struggling to keep up, and he had seen enough. He knew all about the power of Han Sen's fighting abilities, so he did not hesitate to summon clouds to swirl around his body and bring out his answer sword. Then, he leapt into the fray to fight alongside Huang Mayan. The skills of the Chen family were powerful. Compared to Chen Ran, Zhu Ting was just a rookie. Chen Ran was like some strange bird, swerving from left to right in an unpredictable manner. Han Sen's two swords now had to block Huang Mayan and Chen Ran's attacks simultaneously, which made him clumsy. Chen Ran's movements were too strange, and he didn't even have to touch the floor. He was flying, more often than not, and the entire spectacle didn't even seem human. He made many unexpected moves. Dong! The silver snake sword clashed against the answer sword, and it was a strange sensation. Chen Ran's sword felt like a cloud, and Han Sen briefly thought his sword had hit a spring. After hitting it, his sword bounced back strongly, which forced him to take a few steps back. Han Sen, if you surrender now, I will spare your life. You are friends with Zhu Ting, after all. Chen Ran attacked as he tried to talk Han Sen into submitting and to extinguish his will to continue fighting. Old Chen, if you leave now, I will spare your life. You are related to Zhu Ting, after all. Han Sen was not mad. Instead, he smiled as he spoke. You are a stubborn boy. Chen Ran's eyes went cold and he applied more strength to the fury of his answer sword. Han Sen was battling two opponents at once, and despite the disadvantage, neither of them was able to deal any damage to him. Han Sen's body was unbelievably light and graceful, and it was startling to see him remain calm under the attacks of two elites at once. You really know Heavenly Go, don't you? Did the Queen teach you? How dare they break the oath that was sworn? It looks to me as if Huang Fuxing Cheng doesn't want to live, Chen Ran shouted. Even if the Queen did teach me Heavenly Go, what does it have to do with you? This skill is a legacy of the Huangfu family. They can teach whomever they please. There is no need for them to adhere to your petty, mistaken whims. Han Sen sternly rebutted. It seemed as if Heavenly Go had something to do with the Chen family. Otherwise, why would Chen Ran care so dearly? For this, Han Sen wanted to push it. Han Sen had always wondered why the Queen was the only who had been able to learn it. No matter how difficult the skill was to learn, there were many students in the Ares Martial Hall. It would be impossible for them not to select another student to learn Heavenly Go. Huangfu family is teaching Heavenly Go. If it still belonged to the Chen family, none would be able to dodge our 7 twist, Chen Ran said. Everyone knows Heavenly Go belongs to the Huangfu family. Since when did it become a skill of the Chen family? Come on, don't bullshit me, Han Sen said, in an attempt to further aggravate Chen Ran. An old fox like Chen Ran knew what Han Sen was trying to do, but he coldly said, you don't have to try to push me. After I capture you, I am going to ask Huang Fuxing Cheng himself. Then I can see what reason he has for not giving me back my Heavenly Go. After that, the clouds blazed out of Chen Ran wildly. The attacks of the answer sword came faster and faster. He wasn't aiming for Han Sen's weak spots either, he was going for his limbs in an attempt to disable him. Han Sen was able to deal with Huang Mayan's attacks, but as for the old fox, he really was displaying the power of someone who had lived in the second shelter for over 100 years. His fitness was so powerful and the progress of his gene lock was incredible. Han Sen took a step back and summoned his peacock crossbow. He pulled a raven feather out of his quiver and loaded it as quick as he could. Chen Ran saw Han Sen pull out a crossbow and aim it at him. He disdainfully said, I believed you to be the sort that would pack real heat. You know, the big guns, not a crossbow. Chen Ran had been in the second shelter for a long time, and he had seen many things in his time there. He had even seen a sacred blood crossbow used in conjunction with a sacred blood bolt. Against him, he thought a crossbow would be useless. If it was an ordinary bow, on the other hand, Chen Ran would have some trepidations. The power of a bow was derived from its wielder, and such weapons could be imbued with magical properties and other special powers. As such, he would be quick to try and avoid getting struck by one. But the power of a crossbow was always derived from how it was initially manufactured. There was a limit to the power they had. Even a sacred blood bolt, against an elite like Chen Ran, would be useless. Chen Ran continued to swing his answer sword with greater power and greater speed. Pang! Han Sen pulled the trigger and a black flash sparked from the crossbow's muzzle. The bolt was in front of Chen Ran's face. Chen Ran's face changed, not expecting a bolt to ever possess such horrifying speed. And since it was fired at such a close distance, it didn't look likely he'd be able to dodge it. But Chen Ran was a scary elder, and his reaction speeds had no equal. With the answer sword, he blocked the black feather bolt. The blade deflected the speeding bolt at great cost. The berserk sacred blood answer sword shattered in half, shards splintering off in an array of different directions. The force knocked Chen Ran's body backwards, cleaving the earth with 2 3-meter-long skid marks. Chen Ran's mouth spewed blood. With utter shock, his eyes locked on the crossbow in Han Sen's hand. He could not believe a crossbow could possess so much power. Han Sen quickly saw that his first bolt did not kill Chen Ran, so without hesitation, he loaded up another and fired again. The black streak beamed towards Chen Ran once more. Chen Ran shouted, as clouds streamed out around him, masking his entire body in white puffs of cotton. Then, he immediately began flying away to dodge the second bolt. The Chen family's 7 twist is powerful. Han Sen admired his hurried escape, but his hands did not stop moving. Again, he loaded and fired one bolt after another, not allowing Chen Ran to escape. Chen Ran believed after dodging the first bolt, he'd be able to escape without a problem. The bolts were too frightening. He didn't dare rival such a formidable weapon, not knowing what was wrong with Han Sen's crossbow, and how it possessed such a terrifying power. What was more, he didn't expect Han Sen's crossbow to fire so rapidly. It was almost like a pistol. After dodging 4 bolts, he could not dodge the ones that came after. The next second, a barrage of 4 bolts pierced his body. The bolts tore through the sacred blood armor he was wearing like hot knives through butter. The incredible power of the bolts sent him spiraling a few dozen meters away, pinning him to a nearby cliffside. Huang Mian shouted, and as he did, Han Sen turned to fire another bolt his way. Peng! The bolt shattered Huang Mian's greatsword into little more than glitter, and still, its speed was not impeded. It went on to pierce his right arm. Huang Mian did not react, as if he hadn't felt anything from the bolt that tore through his arm. Madly, he threw a fist towards Han Sen's face. What benefit has Chen Ran provided you? Why do you so earnestly wish to give your life for him? Han Sen took a step back and dodged Huang Mian's incoming fist. Huang Mian's punching skills were far inferior to his sword-fighting ability, and thus not a threat to Han Sen. He saved my life, and as such, I must return the favor. Then I will allow you. Han Sen slapped Huang Mian's head, which caused him to fall down. The other people who had accompanied Chen Ran were already running to the hills at this point. A powerful character like Chen Ran had been defeated by a bolt, and fearing the same would happen to them, they wished they had an extra set of legs so they could skitter away at a greater pace. They could not imagine how such a wretched crossbow could have come to exist. It was just like a pistol, and with such fearsome power, it was more overpowered than it had any right to be. Han Sen could not be bothered to chase the yahoos that scampered away, and instead ventured to the cliffside Chen Ran had been pinned to. Chen Ran's body had 4 blood-stained bolts sticking out of him, but still he had not died yet. He attempted to pull the feathers out but couldn't. Going forward, the feathers were as soft as silk, but going backwards, they cut like a dozen razor blades. If he attempted to pull them out, the organs and bones inside him would be butchered. Chen Ran, I hate to say it, but it's true, none of this had to happen. Han Sen smiled as he stood before Chen Ran's ruined body. Up and down, Han Sen's eyes lingered upon the near-lifeless defeated. Han Sen, you dare kill me. The Chen family will have their revenge. A world of pain will be the only thing that can come from this. Chen Ran told Han Sen as he seethed with rage. But blood oozed from behind his lips, choking the words he wished to spit out at Han Sen. What might have been an unnerving warning was instead a pitiful sight. If you want to live, tell me the secrets to learning 7 twists, Han Sen offered, smiling. Chen Ran's mouth was full of blood as he laughed. Kid, when I first wandered these lands, your father hadn't even been born yet. You dare give me such an ultimatum? Chen Ran spat blood out onto Han Sen's face. Then he gritted his teeth, which turned the blood in his mouth black. Then his pulse stopped. He was dead. Han Sen, to ensure the fact, examined his body. Han Sen looked at Chen Ran with shock. He did not expect this evil old fox would be so wild as to use poison to finish himself off. I really shouldn't underestimate prominent figures of such big families. Their loyalty to each other is almost scary. Han Sen thought about it for a while longer. Then he started a fire to burn Chen Ran's body. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.